Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, welcome to Sports Court. I'm your bailiff and judge, Joe Callahan Jr. presiding, alongside prosecutor J.C. Colavita and defense attorney Matt McLaughlin. After months of negotiations and a 6-week lockout, a new collective bargaining agreement is finally here, and baseball can finally begin. However, in terms of the future of baseball, was it truly a good agreement? Gentlemen, do you agree to tell your truth and nothing but your truth, so help Penn State Sports Night?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect.
We'll roll with that.
Prosecutor may give your statement.
Okay, so I got a few things to talk about with the CBA. It needed to happen, but I'm pretty against it, I'd say. Just because they did the expanding playoffs, that just makes it the playoff talent is just so much lower now. I mean, you saw it in the NFL with the 2 versus 7 game now on Super Wildcard Weekend. They're not good games. They're just doing it for a cash grab. The thing with baseball that was so cool is that it was so hard to get into the playoffs. I mean, going back, 80 years, only 2 teams made the playoffs, just the World Series. You had to win the pennant. This is why you play all 162 games. Another thing I don't like is the draft lottery. That makes absolutely no sense. Baseball, you don't tank in baseball because the draft, the prospects, they don't make an impact right away. I mean, Adley Rutschman got picked a few years ago. He still hasn't made his first Major League appearance yet. If tanking worked in the MLB, the Marlins would be the best team in baseball. I also don't like the DH. I know everybody was clamoring for it. They're saying it'll speed up the game. But when Bartolo Colon hit his first home run, I'm a Phillies fan. That was one of my favorite moments of all time and one of the best calls I've ever heard. And I think just pitcher home runs, it makes the game more fun, more unpredictable. And I also don't like the idea of the automatic umpire, the automated balls and strikes. That takes away the human element. The pitchers will pitch a few inches on and off, outside, inside the strike zone, and the umpire, that strike zone blurs as the game moves along, and you don't get that anymore. A strike is a strike is a strike from now on. I don't like that. I don't like the shift either. This is because you're getting paid millions upon millions of dollars to play a kid's game, and you can't hit the other way. That's something I learned how to do in Little League. And these guys are 30-year-old men. They're grown men. They can't hit the other way. This is like the first time in any major sport they just made a rule change just because it was too OP. It was too hard.
Defense?
I mean, clearly, the truth is out of this CBA is that baseball needed a refresher. And in a similar fictional court of law, clearly you can't handle the truth, my friend, okay? Baseball needed a refresh. It needed a reboot. It's clearly a sport of dying old guys who are reminiscing about Lou Gehrig and Joe DiMaggio. And it's like, listen, buddy, time's passed. Universal DH needed. I'm not tuning into a baseball game to see a pitcher taken at bat. Sorry, I want to see Max Scherzer deal. I don't want to see him take cuts if I'm a Mets fan, formerly Dodgers, but you know how that situation clearly worked out. But mobility is exactly what the Major League Baseball needed because it creates this wonder of like, oh, what if this team gets going? And the CBA has finally structured small market teams to actually go for it and sign big names. Who would have thought Carlos Correa would have ended up with the Minnesota Twins or Chris Bryant with the Colorado Rockies? As questionable as that decision to give that contract out may be, it's still very exciting. And this is exactly what the Major League Baseball needs. And teams on the bubble, like the Philadelphia Phillies signed Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos. Fantastic signings, and they're finally going for it. And with the expanded playoff, I think that's going to do the same thing that the NBA play-in tournament has done for that league, where teams are on the bubble, they could get into the 10 seed and say, you know what, screw it, we're going to go for the playoffs and see what we can do come crunch time. And with the rule changes, Universal DH, I already mentioned, great rule change, long time coming, and I think it's been long overdue. The pitch clock, I think, is sorely needed. I'm glad that that is getting installed because I just cannot handle seeing 30 seconds go by, 45 seconds go by, and pitchers are on the mound taking their time. Let's go. Come on. Let's pick it up a little bit. This is baseball. Let's get balls in play here. So overall, CBA, great job. The lockout, the process to get there was rough, but the agreement itself is great, in my opinion.
Rebuttal?
I don't know. Again, with the playoffs, I still can't see how it's great. I don't like the way it's structured. I don't like that 3-game series. I really like the 1-game playoff. The one game, all for the money wild card game, that was something I looked forward to. That got huge ratings, and again, just the poor talent. Like they're talking about even expanding the league itself. And again, you need pitching. You can't. These teams don't have all these pitching. The starting rotations just aren't up to par. Pitching wins these seasons. You can, like a couple years ago, the Twins had the highest home run count, and their pitching just wasn't up to par, and they just can't. That's why they've lost 20+ consecutive playoff games. You need pitching to get far, and with all the injuries you're seeing, with all these arm injuries, the more baseball you're playing, the more you're going to see that.
But wouldn't pitching theoretically be helped by the universal DH rule because it's giving a whole half inning of rest to these pitchers who are getting in the rotation? And keep in mind, both players and owners are incentivized to bring up prospects because now they can earn an additional draft pick if a prospect on the opening day roster finishes in the top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting and top 5 in the Cy Young voting. So owners may say, hey, let's bring up this young kid. He's unproven, and maybe in the playoffs he can deliver a huge hit for us. And I just think that with the expanded playoff, there's too much debate. Like, this is the wrong issues that baseball is facing at the moment. And more playoff baseball is better. I just think they should have cut down on the length of games. I'm not going to tune in for 162 games straight. That's not how the diehard baseball fan works these days. It's all through social media, Twitter highlights, Instagram posts. And to cut down on the length of games, even if it's to 182, and then you get that expanded playoff that gives the players more rest, and hopefully that makes the playoffs better in the long run.
All right, order in the court. I think we've heard enough. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, even though the court finds that Matt had the best case, you have the say, and we await your decision. For J.C. Colavita and Matt McLaughlin, I'm Joe Callahan Jr. You may adjourn to make your final verdict down below.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night. We hope you liked that segment.
And we're sure there's other Penn State Sports Night segments that you are going to love as well. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.
And check us out on social media for updates and behind-the-scenes clips and pics. Follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action.
For all of us here at the Belisari Media Center, we are
Penn State Sports Night.